Hello, welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, the channel that brings you all your latest Rangers news. Right, you know what? We're going to talk January, we're going to talk Rangers spending, we're going to talk finances, we're going to talk money. So, you know what? Let's go to the other side of the city because let's face it, they are the experts on Rangers finances. You know what? They must all be. I mean, there seriously must be 60,000 accountants and actuaries and financial advisors inside Parkhead every other weekend. I mean, their knowledge of finance is just second to none in the Scottish game. I mean, the amount of time they must spend studying Rangers accounts and Rangers money is just phenomenal. They must have no time for their wife, who's also their sister. They must generally have no time for it at all. They must be just solely looking at our finances. You know, they are the experts apparently. I mean, Jesus Christ, it seriously is bordering on a mental delusion. Anyway, let's talk January. Let's talk the reality of the situation, and let's talk about Rangers going into the January transfer window. Now, I think it's clear that the squad is making progress. The squad is showing signs of improvement. The fact that players are returning as well is also positive news for Rangers. Obviously, Oscar Cortez was back on the bench on Saturday. Unfortunately, didn't get any minutes. I would have liked to have seen him playing at least a 10, 15, 20-minute part on Saturday to start to get some game time into those legs. But hey-ho, I'm sure that will come in time, especially with the busy festive and New Year period to come for Rangers. Now, the intention, according to reports this morning, and obviously from not only just from media, but also from the board and from people like Patrick Stewart, is that Rangers will spend in January. They will back the manager in January, but players will also have to depart as well as we seek to obviously balance costs. You know, this is it's not because of the fact that we are skint, you know, which is the common joke that comes through the side of the city, skint FC and all this shit that comes out of their mouths that is just, ridiculous. They should focus on their own team. At the end of the day, it is down to the fact that, with FFP considerations to take into account, you have to be extremely careful when spending money. You don't want to fall foul of FFP and fall foul of fines or point deductions, as has happened south of the border to teams like Everton and Nottingham Forest. So Rangers will spend in January. Now, what do I place this faith in and this confidence in that money will be made available? I mean, I think, if you asked a lot of Rangers fans, will Rangers spend in January? A lot of you would say, nah, we've got no money. It'll be loans and frees and that'll be it. But I place this on a statement made by interim chairman John Gilligan at the time, who obviously now replaced by Fraser Thornton. This is what John Gilligan had to say when he spoke at the AGM, and it had said and backed up with further statements to this effect. It says, we aim to bring stability to the player trading model to try and improve it. I think the manager we've got is the man to do that. There will be money for Clement to spend in January. I think with any manager at any football club, you can sell and make a profit. Then it helps with the buying. It doesn't depend on it. It certainly adds to it and helps with the whole opportunity of improving. We keep talking about the player trading model because ideally we want to be able to bring in players, get them to play properly for the team and do well, but hopefully we sell them on and then reinvest. So not only have you got a kind of summation of the player trading model there from chairman, interim chairman, or past chairman, or whatever role he now holds, John Gilligan, you've also got a commitment there that the manager will be given funds to spend in January, and there will be an investment there. Now, I mean, if we take that quote and we look at that quote and we look at what he's got to say, we do need to provide a stability to the player trading model. We do need to start to and continue to bring in players who will obviously, in the future be sold on for substantial fees. Now, by my estimations, by looking at the current squad, the current Rangers squad, on the 23rd of December, we have, what I would describe as a number of players there who are players who would, genuinely fit that trading model, that if they continue with their rates of development and if they continue to improve, could well be players who are sold on in the future. Now, I know that this is not always popular with the fans. As fans, we want players to come, we want players to stay, we want to hold on to our best players. But unfortunately, in the market we now operate in, where Scotland doesn't get substantial TV funds, Rangers don't bring in the kind of funds that English clubs do, hanging on to players is increasingly difficult. And if substantial bids come in from clubs south of the border or clubs in Europe, we have to obviously take those bids seriously. But, in the likes of Ridvan Yilmaz, in the likes of Oscar Cortez, when fit, Connor Barron, Mohamed Diamande, look at that, Clinton Nsiala, hopefully. Also looking at players like, coming out of the academy, like Lovelace, Bailey Rice, Cole McKinnon, Robbie Fraser, Ross McCausland, I mean, players not out of the academy like Nicholas Raskin, Hamza Igaman, Yefte, players like that. You've got players there that could potentially come in and make, a difference and be actually players that are sold on for substantial profit. Now, we have seen, as much as I don't want to talk about it, the other side of the city spending money and then selling players on. Diego Jota, for example, Matt O'Reilly, bringing in substantial funds for them. So we have got players there in place. Now, the news that the manager will be backed in January and will be given money, I think it's interesting, isn't it, that this is the case, that I think that this money will go into players that do fit the trading model. I don't think this money is going to go into players who are of a certain age, like Robin Proper, for example. I think this will be players who can be improved and sold on. Now, obviously, that is a two-edged sword. Number one, obviously, is these players are good for the club. They're good for the future of the club. The second part of it, not so good. Maybe they're not ready to hit the ground running. But look, in Niels Coppen, we trust. We have to trust Coppen and his recruitment staff that go abroad, that look at players in the African market, in the Scandinavian market, in the South American market, in the Eastern European market. And these players can be brought in, can have an impact, and can play from January onwards. So, it's encouraging, isn't it, that there is money there and that there will be money to spend. Now, people are going to say, well, yeah, how much money? How much is it? But I think we've all got to realise that, realistically, no club ever comes out and says we have X million to spend on new players. Why? Because the moment you release that information, the moment you say we have got 10 million, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, I mean, we haven't got this amount of money, but you know what I mean? That sort of money, you automatically bank up prices. Clubs know that if you're saying that you've got a substantial amount of money to spend, they're going to try and fleece as much money out of you as possible. And everyone knows that January, per se, is a massive, huge seller's market. It's not a buyer's market, because the clubs that buy in January tend to be clubs that either want to consolidate their place at the top, want to push on for Champions League football or European football, or want to try and avoid relegation. They're the clubs that tend to spend in January and tend to spend more in January because they've got something to play for. So clubs that that have players to sell, perhaps around the mid-table mark, those that are safe, those that have got nothing to play for, want to get as massive a return as they can for their players. So it is a seller's market, but it is very encouraging for me that there is news that there is money there to spend. Now, we've seen in recent times players linked with a move to Rangers: Marco Soldo, Darius Olaru, Isaac Price, Joe Gelhardt. No, thank you. Players like that have been linked with moves to Rangers, and some of those names are repeat names. Masoldo and Olaru, for example, are names that have come up time and time again. So there could be some truth in that. We don't know the truth. We'll never know the truth of who Rangers truly want until we see that player stood at Auchenhowie or at Ibrox with a scarf above their head, wearing the shirt. That's when we know the truth. But it's interesting still, nonetheless, to follow some of these rumours and look at some of these reports, looking at potential targets for the club. Now, on the flip side of this, we've talked obviously about the fact that there is money there to spend and there'll be money coming into the club and money going out of the club. We need to obviously bring money into the club. There is a need there to balance the books. There is a need there to obviously not fall foul of FFP. And this is not because the club is skint. This is not because the club is struggling for money. This is not because the board are being tight. It's because of the fact that they realise and they know that if we were to go out and splurge, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do this, but say £15 million on players, we need to balance that off to some degree to not fall foul of the FFP regulations. So, there is a number of players, for example, where decisions do need to be taken now, as regards contracts, as regards selling them now, and look, it's difficult to sell a player when they enter the last 6 months of their deal, always, because of the fact that clubs will know that, yeah, we wait 6 months, we get them for nothing. Well, not really for nothing. They've still got to pay them a signing on fee, wages, etc., etc. I mean, one of those players, obviously, is Tom Lawrence. Now, Tom Lawrence's contract is up in May 2025. So the club have an interesting decision to make. What do they do with Tom Lawrence? Do they sell now or try and get a fee for him now in January? Or do they give him a new contract with the aim of perhaps keeping him for a couple of years, or even, say, selling him on in the summer once that's, with a new contract, so that we've got a bit of protection there. Now, Philippe Clement has said on a number of occasions, and Niels Coppen as well, that the club doesn't ever want to be in the same position again where we're going into a summer losing 3, 4, 5 players for absolutely nothing. Now, Lawrence, Lowry, Devine, McKinnon and Balogun all come out of contract at the end of this season. So again, we have decisions to make. Do we try and sell some of these in January to get rid of them, to raise at least some funds? Yes, we will not, I don't think, realise their full value but any sort of fee for some of those players would be positive. Now, I think the likes of Balogun and McKinnon certainly need to be retained and certainly need to be given a new contract by the club. In terms of Lowry and Devine and Lawrence, I think there is perhaps a case there to be made to sell them. Obviously, Lawrence, yes, has chipped in with goals and assists this season, but overall his performances have not been that impressive, despite what the manager may think. Alex Lowry, I think, it's kind of proved that he doesn't really have a future at the club, so that if we could, say, trade him on for $500,000, whatever, with a future sell-on fee, I think that would be a good move for the club. And Adam Devine as well, another one who had the loan spell at Motherwell last year, came back and hasn't really again had a chance to get into the team. Obviously, Tavernier is there, Sterling is there, Cass was there. So Devine, I think, is another one who I think at this stage in his career does need to be moved on. Again, if we can get $250,000, $500,000 plus a sell-on, would all be very positive for the club. So they're the assets we need to look at in the short term in terms of contracts expiring in 2025. All those players are out of contract in May, June 2025. By that same token, I think there are players who perhaps, and who are, well, not perhaps, no, perhaps about it, are out of contract, in the future, but do need to be sold. I think, there's money there to be raised. Now, for me, 3 players stick out like a sore thumb going into this January transfer window. Cyril Dessers, I think, we need to move him on. The guy has proved that he's not really fit to be a Rangers striker. He's a backup striker, but paying a backup striker £27,000 a week is not financially responsible. There's also reports and rumours that he's not happy at being a backup, that he wants to be a starter. But, he's not really dealing in the real world, is he? I mean, if he thinks that he's better than Danilo and Igman, he's living in cloud cuckoo land, because he clearly isn't better than Danilo or Igman. He is clearly a third-rate striker in comparison with those two. So, Dessers, I think, is an option. I mean, we did have the bid from Atlanta United in the summer, which unfortunately Dessers didn't take. I mean, the club were willing to take the money, but Dessers wouldn't move, which I suppose shows a weakness on the club's behalf there. Personally, I think, again, if we could get someone like Atlanta United or the French team, I think who is it again? Saint-Etienne, who were allegedly interested in him. To pay something around 2-3 million, yes, we take a loss on him, but we save his wages, we bring some money into the club. I think that has to be something we look at. Dessers, I don't rate Dessers in the slightest. I think he's a poor striker. I think his first touch is poor. I think his ability to hold the ball up is poor. His movement is poor. He's inconsistent. He doesn't score goals when it actually matters. And it's no secret, is it? And no strangeness, the team has looked a hell of a lot better going forward when he isn't in the team. And, you've got to kind of add 2 and 2 together and get 4 there and not get 5. And I know that's going to upset some of the Dessers fans in the fan base who do need to give their little heads a wobble. It's time for him to go. Matondo, another one. I mean, we turned down a bid from Norwich in the summer for him. I think he's another one that has never really lived up to his promise. Again, if we can get some money back on him, that is a positive. That is something we need to do. Dowell. I mean, I know the manager seems to like Kieran Dowell, but I'll re-raise the question that I've raised on a number of occasions. What is the point of Kieran Dowell? Where is his best position? He's not going to replace Hadji or Bayrami as an attacking midfielder, which he can play. He's not really skillful and quick enough to play on the wing, so taking Cortez or Cheney or Bayrami or McCausland's place. He's not really any good as an 8 because he doesn't really go box to box very often. His passing range is not fantastic, so he's not better than Dio, he's not better than Raskin, he's not better than Barron. So, what is the point of him? So I think, he's another one that hopefully, these performances the manager's been putting him on for is putting him in the shop window a little bit. And if we can get an English League One or an English Championship club interested in him, time to move him on. If we could say raise somewhere in the region of £7.5-8 million from selling these players, and then add that into whatever the board are releasing in terms of player sales, that would give Coppen and Clem on a nice little kitty to spend there in January. In terms of moving the club forward, that has to be the aim, to hit the ground running and to bring in players that we need. We'll look at what players we need in the future on another video, and I'd love to know your thoughts where you think we need to strengthen. I think, there are a number of positions we do need to strengthen, and if Dessers goes, we will need another centre forward. As much as perhaps a lot of us want Zach Lovelace to get an opportunity. But again, the main focus and the main theme, obviously, we're trying to put across here is there is money, it is encouraging, Rangers will be spending, and we will be bringing players in January, despite what the other side of the city will try and tell you about our finances. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, guys, on the way out, smash the like, sub to the channel, comment, share, do all that amazing stuff for me. That would be phenomenal. Happy Christmas to you all. Merry Christmas to you and your family. This is not the end. We will be keep going over Christmas. Don't you worry. We're not going anywhere. Just want to take the opportunity to say Merry Christmas to all the watchers. Thanks for watching. We are the people.